good news! There's a report on TV with some very bad news.
Another Wednesday, another Dev Diary. Today we'll take a look at the new and improved Sweden.
Enjoy your affordable Swedish crap.
Historically, Sweden didn't do much, and the historical, or democratic, path that are being revealed is... well, I'll just go out and say this. I'm not impressed, but let's walk through it together. I'll start with the tree. This is the big chunky tree, parts of it at least, a lot of it is redacted, but it all starts at the beginning, the Defense Act, the very first focus. That very first focus leads us to choose a leader. The Swedes start with this man in charge, Axel Persson Bramstorp. I don't know how to pronounce these names, so don't shoot me over it. I'm not Swedish, I won't pretend to understand the gobbledygook. We have the fallen Riksdag, not the world's greatest leader either, I guess. Now we have Gustav Bugg. The man does have a nice haircut. He's got that suave look going on. We've got Ernst here, Ernst Wigforss. And then Per Albin Hansson, the historical leader of Sweden with massive eyebrows in which the Swedes regularly hid entire army divisions. I know nothing about modern Sweden. Now coming up to one of the first interesting mechanics for Sweden, stability. Hungerskjold, as this national spirit is called, it all refers back to World War I, where Sweden was still selling stuff to Germany, made a tidy profit out of it, and then in response the Entente, well, they kinda embargoed Sweden. So Sweden kinda starved, well, not really starved, but Sweden suffered for their trade, and they kind of were afraid the same would happen in World War II. That's what this whole thing is related to. The people are worried, and if stability drops far enough, people are gonna go on strike. If stability drops even further, people are scared and people will riot. As you can see, riots, not great. Not great at all. They might be temporary, but these things suck. And that leads directly into a second part of this whole thing with Sweden and its welfare state. The Folkhemmet. I think that's... yeah, that should be right. Social democratic policies. This is your shield against that negative stability, against those horrible events. Essentially, Sweden has its nice welfare state. The people like that welfare state. If you're gonna meddle with that welfare state to pay for military stuff, people aren't gonna like it. It's very much going to be a give and take between military focuses and economy/welfare focuses. So you're going to have to play a balancing act trying to get Sweden off its ass and into the fight, because Sweden really likes sitting there, not doing anything, making money. And as you can see from this focus that they're highlighting, this is, for example, one of the naval focuses from the military branch. Taking that focus, fantastic. You get dockyards, you get war support, you get more faster mill and dockyard construction, but it hurts the other aspects of that Folkhemmet thing. Importantly, it cuts your stability by a lot, and that might just drop you below the requirements to get strikes or riots. So you have to balance these. As you can see, the spirit can change very drastically as you take focuses, where at the start it was a nice stability bonus at the cost of mill and dockyard construction speed. It can flip all the way around, boosting your construction for mills and dockyards at the cost of a massive stability penalty. That brings us to the center part of this focus tree. This is the industrial branch. Look, let's take a look at the full focus tree first. So we have an industrial branch where everything really starts with. That leads off to a military branch that everybody has access to. All the ideologies have access to this branch. So the classics of army on the right here, air force and armor to the center-ish, and all the way over to the left we have the dockyards for the naval stuff. So let's get back to the industry here. Again, they're making you choose. This might turn out to be an interesting balancing act, or this might just be another set of non-options where one is obviously better than the other. It does look like this industrial branch is mostly focused on either banking as much stability through paying off your people's happiness, making them all feel good about themselves. And in exchange, you will have the option to take more of the military branch, because again, military branch, we've seen that it nibbles away at your stability bonus, and that this would offset that. On the other hand, if you want to focus more on the industrial side of things, you would be limited on taking more stability hits in the military branch. It's going to be a trade-off that is at least interesting. And apparently Sweden is very well, or was very well known for its ball bearings. You know, the things that make other things move. I don't know anything about Sweden, so I'll say that again. I don't know anything about Sweden in this timeline. But why does this matter in a war game? A game about World War II. Why am I focusing this much attention in a PP sync on trading ball bearings with the Soviet Union? I may be coming off as too negative now. I just don't see it. I just don't.
Sweden? I don't think so.
And now we're talking about things that actually matter and are interesting from a World War II game point of view. Flashpoints. These are mostly historical events that actually happened in Sweden, and they will relate to rising tensions with their neighbors. For instance, a Soviet air raid on northern Sweden, which historically happened. And now you will have to decide how to respond to this. Diplomacy is a two-man game, so it could go either way. If you want to lean hard on the Soviets and try to either get some reparations out of them or goad them into actually attacking you, sure. But you might overplay your hand and actually have the Soviets declare war on you through these events. Of course, the Soviets could apologize. They could deny it. Or they could straight up declare war. Same with Finland. You could have significantly rising tensions with the Soviets if they start finding Swedish guns in their Finnish enemies' hands, and as a result, Soviets are gonna not be super happy about that. For instance, they might demand you end arms shipments, in which case, again, you'll have to choose. Do you think Stalin's bluffing? Keep sending those guns out. If you think Stalin might not be bluffing and my army's really not ready for anything, might be the time to back off. These are choices that I think matter because they're interesting, at least slightly historical. Then we have the military branch. The classic left side here, all naval stuff. Center is a mix of air and vehicles, and on the right, I want to say this is the land stuff, but it's not really all that. What do I mean by that? Let's keep going. This side, the land stuff, as they say, is kind of linked to war support or your military factory count. Like the idea, I know what the idea behind this is. It's one, to slow you down, and two, to make you use the new mechanic they added where you trade stability for war support through that new Volkshemet, whatever it was. It's not something I personally like. You might find that super interesting and that's cool. Personally, not a fan. But looking at the tree itself, it looks like the left side, defense in depth, is mostly going to be focused on defensive playstyles. The right side is probably going to be focused more on offensive stuff. I mean, it's in the name, defense in depth, and this guy let fly all guns. It's going to give you bonuses. It's going to make your armies better. Look at this. The experience, great. More manpower, more production efficiency, more everything. Like, these bonuses are significant, but a lot of this stuff is locked behind national spirits. I have the feeling it's going to... It might not be as bad as Switzerland. I dearly hope it's not, but it feels like it might actually be a chore playing Sweden for a country that didn't even participate. Oh well. At least there are some good stuff here, because if you get to the focuses, these are significant bonuses. Cheaper armor to produce, that's nice. Armor speed, very nice. Extra hard attack, extra soft attack. These are all very nice bonuses, but they're gated. All of them are gated, and I don't like gated focuses. And of course, there are some military industrial organizations specific to Sweden, Bofors being the most recognizable name, I think. If anyone's read a history book, they know about the Bofors AA guns, their artillery, very renowned for making those. So Bofors is going to be a very powerful asset to the to the Swedish industry. Again, this is something you're going to have to build up through focuses, through decisions, I'm assuming, and you'll have to invest in it. But assuming you want to go to war, war? Why not go to war with the best guns possible? And if you don't want to go to war, why not sell the best guns possible? It does look like this is a very interesting way to keep people engaged with their country's industry beyond just build more mills. And this is something I do like. This is something I'm very much looking forward to. Brings us to the Navy. The Navy, fairly simple. Very simple, actually. The usual, do you go with a surface fleet to rule the Baltics, or do you want to go and do the German style of submarine warfare? Those are your choices, really. Sweden had a relatively respectable navy, and you can easily or relatively easily build on that by buying more destroyers. Fun fact, historically they did buy Italian destroyers, and those Italian destroyers had to sail almost around the entire world to get to where they were going. Or you can buy other ships from other players as you try to build up your navy. It's nice that you can just buy stuff instead of having to build it. Speaking of building things, the Vasa. You can decide to build a new and improved Vasa battleship. Google it. In short, Sweden commissioned its largest, most glorious, most beautiful battleship, a wooden style ship from the olden days. They finish it, send it out to sea, and before it's even left the harbor, it sank. So yeah, they built an entire museum around it. So they dragged it back up, put it in a museum. The Vasa. At least the one you can build through the Focus. Very nice looking. It's relatively cheap in that it just appears in your production queue. 60% built, you only need to complete the other 40%. So it's a relatively cheap ship for you. Let's also hope it doesn't sink in the harbor. More interesting, the Winter War. In short, Sweden gets 3 options. The historical path of Swedes not Sweden to Finland's aid, where you send guns, you send men, but you don't actually get involved. You have the Åland question. I'll leave the history lessons out, but Åland, that Finnish island, there's been a very long disagreement between Finland and Sweden about who actually owns that, with the Finns getting it in the end. But this implies that you can put the squeeze on Finland, try to get them to give you Åland in exchange for either not attacking them as well, I guess, or more of your help. Who knows? We'll find out soon. Or Finland's cause is ours, and you do the right thing, and you send your mighty Swedish host in to defend your Finnish brothers and take the fight to Leningrad. Which, if you take Leningrad, you might actually just force the Soviets to give up, which is cool. What's also nice is if Sweden decides to step up, both Finland and Sweden get a nice bonus, a temporary bonus, but a nice one that will definitely help that push on Leningrad.
Not so neutral now, are you, Sweden?
And now for the rest of this tree here. The historical, air quotes, democratic path under the coalition war cabinet. A lot of this stuff is top hemlich, top secret, but let's take a look at what's already here. Historically, and I'm leaning on Train the Sheltered here, more details here. Train the Sheltered is an interesting focus in that Sweden was a refuge for its Nordic brothers during the war. Finland had a lot of displaced Finns, Sweden and Denmark had a whole bunch of displaced peoples, and many of them flocked to Sweden where they were trained in combat operations under the guise of, we are just training more police people, guys, honestly. And these people then went back to fight for the liberation of their country. This is an option Sweden will get. You can train the Sheltered, which is essentially a manpower pool. You are training Nordic soldiers, and they're being added to a separate special manpower pool that will become available to draw men from once you actually do go to war. Pretty much raising a sort of paramilitary reserve force that you can draw up when you're actually at war. And this one is the funniest focus I've ever seen. The Per Albin Hansson bus. They even have a picture. Of it here. Okay, so this ramshackle bus was designed to be the mobile headquarters for the Swedish government in case of invasion. The plan was literally to bundle the government into that bus and drive it out away into the forests. There's a lot of forests in Sweden, so they probably could have gotten away. Holy cow, is that the dumbest defense idea I've ever heard? Also, why would a player ever find himself in that situation? But let's look at the bus some more. Essentially, the bus, the mobile headquarters here, is a state modifier. It starts in the capital state where it gives you a certain set of bonuses. You can move the bus around using fuel by on-map decisions, move it to different areas, different provinces within Sweden to where it might be needed while you're running away from the enemy. Conversely, you might want to do a funny and actually keep moving the bus as your army is pushing further and further and drive the bus into Moscow or Berlin, which I'm going to assume will be an achievement. If it's an achievement, I want my name on that because that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and it will be incredibly funny. But yeah, it's essentially a state modifier that you can move around at will. Sweden will also get the option to perform commando raids. I don't know exactly what focus will unlock this, but it's another on-map decision. It will cost you manpower and it will do damage in the region. It's essentially like the spy operation or the effects of resistance, only you have more hands-on control. Upside is you choose what happens where, mostly. Downside is you might lose manpower if your commandos don't make it out in one piece. I'm assuming there will be a way to affect the outcome. Better trained commandos, more commandos, or just having a higher level spy network, that sort of thing. It will be cool if that actually affected things. But your rangers do have a chance of not returning from the mission in one piece. So there's the trade-off there. In the grand scheme of things, 1,000 manpower really is not all that much. And then further down the tree, we have the cross we bear. This is an interesting one. Pretty much refers to all of the Nordic countries having a cross on their flag, and it's got some symbolism, blah, yada, 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 yada. But the focus in itself is really cool. For every Nordic country that's occupied, Swedish troops get bonus. This is essentially Sweden taking up the mantle as liberator of the Nordics and getting massive bonuses as it fights to free its brothers. And this is pretty cool. You will get a goal to liberate every occupied Nordic country. The more occupied countries, the stronger the bonus becomes. And once you've liberated your brothers, you get an extra bonus. So this is really cool. This is the kind of stuff I want to see more of. Speaking of really cool, we have some not quite historical stuff here. The Nordic Defense Council. This is an alternate path away from the historical democratic path, air quotes, because you can still go to war. So yeah, it's going to be a matter of choosing. Like in this case, a centralized army command gives you pretty significant penalties to everybody who's not the main honcho, the big boss. While on the other hand, if you decentralize, everybody gets a small bonus. So looks pretty cool, maybe? What I can tell you though is that the color is disgusting. That is not a good looking white. What I am a fan of is the fact that it appears, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but that field marshal, that Swedish field marshal, looks suspiciously like Mannerheim. So it does look like you might actually have ways. Yes. So going by this picture, and a whole lot of this is speculation, you form the Nordic Defense Council, and then you either cajole or convince your fellow Nordics to join. In this case, like we have Denmark, Norway, Finland, and Iceland in, and it looks like they might be puppets of sort, because they don't have their original names. They're also renamed. You have the Icelandic Defense Zone, you have the Finnish Nordic Bulwark, the Norwegian Atlantic Wall. That's super cool, the naming schemes. I can't read what they did to Denmark though. Knowing that this is made by a Swede, they probably named them something funny. But yeah, if they become puppets this way, interesting. You might become some sort of Voltron-like super country in this focus tree. I look forward to trying this out. I was very skeptical about the start of this dev diary, but the further along we get, the more spicy it gets. And then all the way at the bottom of that specific Nordic tree, we have neither death nor dishonor, and that gives you a nice bonus to every member of the council. So yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Not bad, actually. Not great, but not bad. But it does get better and stronger the more people join. So this can really snowball if you go on a recruiting spree or you just have a lot of puppets. And then this set of focuses is actually a very interesting and very new idea for Paradox in Hearts of Iron 4. These are late game focuses. What do I mean by that? These are meant to be taken after World War II's been won or is over. Meaning, at this point, you get to play like a Cold War game, like 1946, 1947, 1948, if your computer can still run it. You still have options to play the game. That's good in that not every game will have to end when Germany goes tits up. It's bad in that I think a whole lot of people will never get to use these focuses. Many people, myself included, don't really play after the big war is won. But with these focuses, I don't know, we might get a reason to. I want to see what they do and what the rewards are or the challenges are, but I want to see what this does. Now, for instance, I'm not very excited by the Lion of the North Rises because 5% stability, war support, and 10% division attack really isn't doing it for me. Not when it takes 70 days, and definitely not when I can't do this one until it's like 1944, where those tiny numbers don't matter at all. Now, if it gave me cores, on the other hand, I might be inclined to keep playing. Or if it unlocked a formable nation, who knows? Maybe. But just for that teeny tiny bonus, which honestly, at that point in the game, this isn't making a difference. And of course, for every country we work, we get a whole bunch of advisors. They look interesting. There's a lot of them. And there are two, well, technically three, very super duper interesting ones. One, we have Ebba Palmstirnas, who is special in that she's free and you can customize her through decisions because she's special somehow. I don't know much about who she was, what she did, why she did it, but she can be customized through decisions. So I'm guessing it was big in Sweden. And on the other hand, we have the Myrdal couple, who are okay on their own, but when both are hired, they become even better. So these guys, well, this man and woman, they have complementary skills, I suppose. And if both are hired at the same time, you unlock the text that's down here. So if you hire both Gunnar and Alva, they also get 2% stability each. But then when you fire one, that bonus drops away. That's actually very cool. I like that. And of course, more generals, more fancy hats. Very nice. I'm going to assume they blurred this out because it's probably teasing or revealing something of the special sauce non-historical paths. I'm curious. But this this man, even if he had the absolute worst traits in the game. Sorry, let me zoom at that for you. Even if this man here had the absolute worst traits in the game, I would hire Charles Deschamps, this admiral, every single time, because look at how fabulous he is. He gets my vote every time. And of course, Finland gets the treatment. That means Sweden also gets the treatment. New states. The map's getting redrawn, which is very welcome because the terrain made no sense. This looks okay. I like what I'm seeing. Skåne, Småland. Yeah, the provinces that you'd expect. Fresh models. Always nice to see. Some of these looks not great. That's not the world's greatest tank. This is not the back you're seeing. They put the turret at the back and the engine in front. That's not good design. And then the final piece of this whole thing is, this is a whole set of numbers, but it comes down to they are trying to make Sweden more historical, not just with the focus tree, but also with its resources. Sweden was the raw resource producer of Europe. They had the steel, they had the tungsten, they had the ball bearings, and I think they mean chromium by that. And to replicate that, Germany, France, and Portugal are losing a ton of resources. You can tell, like, the numbers are significant. Germany has less than half of the steel it did. Portugal has like 50% of its tungsten removed. France also almost half of its steel removed, and in exchange, Sweden gets more of it. Overall, there will be a whole lot less of those resources going around, meaning trade will be important. If you get embargoed, you might be screwed. You will have to target your conquests to get those resources because there isn't enough of it to go around. You will have to work with spies applying diplomatic pressure just to get Portugal to sell you all of that tungsten instead of everyone else. So this might actually be the biggest change they bring, because the resource rebalancing is going to be hell for Germany. Right now, Germany is mostly self-sufficient in everything, and what she doesn't have, she can always build. Now, though, with the steel, you might be in trouble. You can get a lot of French steel still. There's a whole lot less stuff to go around. And Sweden, they're gonna be an important trading partner. Anyway, that was a look at Sweden and its democratic paths. I really want to like Sweden. I don't know how I feel about it right now, but I think I'm going to be a lot more enthusiastic about the alt history paths for Sweden, because we all know that there's going to be a monarchy run. I hope you guys at least enjoyed the video, and go check out the Dev Diary yourselves, and we will be back with more Dev Diaries next week. See ya.